Welcome to Roleplaying History, the podcast where we examine the history of role-playing games. I'm Wayne Davis, and I'll be your guide for today's tour. And today's tour is a bonus episode. That's right. We're going to talk about some terms of role-playing games. Not all of them, not even a lot of them, just some of the ones I think I mentioned last week that were just a little clarification. But anyway, before I get into all of that, I want to take actually a full step back and re-examine a couple of things that I talked about in this past Friday's episode, talking about the creation of Dungeons and Dragons and its long history. That was a longer episode than the first episode, and when I was listening to it, when I was listening back to it, because I wanted to listen, because I had a sponsor last week for the first time, and I wanted to hear how that went. I did a couple things different, so I listened to the whole episode again once it was posted, which is something I don't typically do. And a couple of things occurred to me. Anyway, I wanted to hit that up first, and this really, is talking about the whole Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson thing in the creation of D&D, and I got to thinking kind of on my own when I was listening to that back. I'm like, man, if somebody didn't know what my intention was when I was writing that, boy, they'd think I was really sitting here trying to just dog Gary Gygax or disrespect Gary Gygax. And I have to say, straight up, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that was not my intention. Gary Gygax was an exceptionally talented individual, an exceptionally creative individual, certainly one of the caretakers of D&D right up until the day he died. And it was a bucket list thing that I obviously never got to check off, but a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people over the years who did, and that's actually be at a convention where he would run a game. So don't think for a second that I'm trying to say Gary Gygax is not creative, that he's not in his own way a gaming genius. That wasn't what the point of all of that was. The point was to really tell the world and make it exceptionally clear to the world that Dave Arneson, who I said it, I think in the podcast itself, Dave Arneson was a freaking creative genius. I think the thing for him was throughout his entire life, he just kind of, I don't know that he ever was able to truly find the outlet that was perfect for his creativity. And that's unfortunately what happens to a lot of artists. You dabble around in different styles and maybe you get lucky and you find the one that works for you or you don't. I think too that his legal issues with Gary Gygax with TSR kind of just, really just bummed him out insofar as the game that he really helped create. And, his history is that he spent a lot of years later on. Now, obviously, we're talking into the 90s and the early 2000s. He kind of got into video game creation a little bit. But, yeah, that, he really he was just this. And, I try not to swear too much on here because I know there might be kids listening. But Dave Arneson was really just an exceptionally creative son of a bitch who just never really got and still really doesn't get the credit and the accolades that he's due. And that's really, to me, that was the point I was trying to make. And if there was any other point that somebody took out of that, I apologize. That was not my intention. I certainly wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I was trying to really give some credit to somebody who is a capital G, genuine, capital L legend in this business and deserves to be treated as such. One other point that I wanted to kind of go back and hit, there was a point when I was talking about all of the different settings, and it was kind of a rapid fire, man. See, every 90 seconds, it seemed like I was cranking out talking about another campaign setting. And I said something about setting fatigue. That one of the thoughts being, too many settings, people just kind of turn off, unplug, they don't care anymore. Or there's the other side, it's just like, I'm going to do my own thing. Really, kind of the big thing on setting fatigue. It goes back to a point that I had made previously in that podcast. And I said, oh, I'm going to expand on that. And then, dumb me, I didn't expand on that. When Dungeons and Dragons was first released, Gygax and Arneson both basically had the idea that people who were going to play this game, they were going to go create their own adventure. They were going to go create their own world. They were going to go create their own sandbox to be in. Because in the wargaming world, that's really what you did. You might buy a war game that's set in the Napoleonic era, and it might even have a map of, a certain area. But the gamers themselves were, your job to set the rules out. Your job to set what's the background of this. Your job to set what are the winning conditions or losing conditions for this going to be. You set all of that stuff up yourself, and that was just how you did it. So in their minds, and it makes perfect sense because I could see myself thinking that, in their minds, it was just perfectly logical to go, well, we're going to give you some basic outlines, but of course you're going to go do your own world and you're going to set your own thing. Because that was what had been done to that time, and why the hell would it be any different here? So I think it's kind of also where sometimes the fatigue, quote unquote, would come in, but it would also be, not even something that they probably would have considered. Now, obviously, 47 years later, you're playing in an established campaign world with established campaign material. That's chapter and verse. I mean, it's done literally every night of the week, every week of the year, somewhere in the world. Somebody's playing in Greyhawk, somebody's playing in Forgotten Realms, somebody's playing in Eberron. Hell, somebody's, got the rules for Spelljammer or Planescape or Dark Sun or whatever, and they're playing in their little world together. And that's perfectly okay. But like I said, at that time, it was just really expected. You're going to create your own world. You're going to do your own thing. So I'm really kind of mad at myself that I didn't get into that when I was talking about it. It was something that I caught myself, not something that somebody else went, hey, dummy. So, all right. So that's the old business. Let's get into the new business. I did promise you a bonus episode, and as busy as my weekend turned out to be, I'm still carving out a little time here on Monday night to record the promised bonus episode. It's going to seem a little less structured and formatted as what I usually do. And there's a reason behind that. Usually I write out, when I'm doing research, I write out every single word that I'm going to say, and then I type that all out in Word, and then I kind of go over it, and I make some adjustments and revisions, and then I sit down and I record. It takes an hour and a half sometimes to record and to edit, and dude, it was a busy weekend, okay? I had to prep my own campaign, had some stuff come up on Sunday. Not excuses, but just kind of, okay, you know what? We're going to try something a little looser. We're going to see how it works. So, yeah, here I am, almost 8.5 minutes in, and I'm just now getting to the actual meat of what I said I was going to do a bonus podcast for. So, I know in the first two shows, I kept making comments. Gamer-centric terminology would be, I guess, the overall category that I would use. And I kept saying, oh, I'll explain what that's going to be. I'll explain what that's going to be. And I'm not going to try to do all the terms. Trust me. Because, again, I could do 2 or 3 shows just on terminology. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get some of the basics out. And then that gives us a little something to work off of as I go through and do other game systems, or if I go back and do some deeper dives into some of the D&D editions, we'll have an idea of where we're at. So one of the ones that kept coming up last week, I was talking about things that were added when D&D was created. What were these things that were added that were new things? I said character class, and race, and armor class, and experience, and hit points. And so I'm going to do those, and note right off the top, I'm going to kind of base this off of Dungeons and Dragons, because that gives us a starting point. And then, like I said, as each game kind of does its own thing, we can kind of explain, okay, well, this is what this, if it was D&D, this is what it would be, but this is what it is in, say, Vampire or Deadlands or Shadowrun or whatever other game I talk myself into really deep diving on here. And I'm going to talk myself into quite a few before it's said and done. So let's talk about, I'm going to kind of go out of order just because. Armor class is a big thing in gaming because armor class literally is how hard it is for your character to be hit by attacks from a monster or whatever is attacking. That's literally what it is. And with armor being in the name, yes, the armor that your character wears plays into it. Armor has a certain rating. It gives you X number of points bonus for your armor class. There is something else that figures into that. It's your dexterity score. I'll get into dexterity in a minute because I'm going to talk about ability scores. But there are modifiers that go with that. So you take your armor modifier, your dexterity modifier, you add it to 10. There are other possible modifiers, but I'm not going to get into all that right now. And that's your armor class. So let's say your armor class is 16. Right, if I roll a 20-sided die, and yes, those exist, and I add in my bonuses, because I can get bonuses for my strength and for my weapon and for other things. I add all those bonuses in and to my roll. If it is 16 or higher, I hit you. If it's 15 or lower, I missed you. Simple as that. And we resolve damage and we move on. Now, armor class has really only been armor class as we know it since 3rd edition. Going back to 2nd edition, it was something that was called, it is a mouthful, 2-hit armor class 0. We called it THACO for short. And I'm really not going to go deep in the weeds on this, but I'm just going to say that to figure that out half the time, you needed to be a math major with your little slide rule and a book of charts. And yeah, it drove a lot of us to drink. Let's just be honest about it. I hated it. I really did. Especially when armor class was completely overhauled for 3rd edition. It makes it so much easier now. And again, it makes it easier to teach new players how to play. Now, I said something about attack rolls. So why don't I just go on ahead and jump to attack rolls? It's real simple. When you're going to have a combat, where one side's going to attack the other side. The attack rolls are simple. I take my D20. I roll it. I add something that is called my initiative modifier to it. I'll explain what that is in a minute. And so I know where I go in the round. When it is my turn to go, I attack. An attack is simple. Kind of talked about what it was in armor class. I roll my D20. I add all my little bonuses that I get. And then I compare it to the armor class of that I am, whatever it is I'm trying to hit. That's an attack roll. I keep talking about, these modifiers, dex modifier, strength modifier. You have ability scores in D&D, and there are 6 abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, for my birthday, a couple weeks ago, I just got this really cool tumbler. It's a D&D thing, and it's got the ability scores on there, and it has a particular way of describing how the ability scores work, and I'm going to steal it from that to use here. Strength. Well, strength it tells you how hard it would be for you to squeeze a tomato, basically, or several tomatoes. Hey, why not? Dexterity. Well, how easy it is for you to dodge a tomato that gets thrown at you. Constitution. How you would handle eating a bad tomato. Intelligence. Intelligence is being smart enough to know that a tomato is technically a fruit. Wisdom. That would be in knowing that even though a tomato is a fruit, you don't put one in a fruit salad. And charisma. Well, having a lot of charisma would be having the ability to successfully sell a tomato-based fruit salad. Okay? Ability scores are, in the D&D game anyway, they are determined by rolling 4 6-sided dice. 6-sided dice are the dice we've been using for years, kids. You know what I'm talking about. So you roll 4 of them, drop a low score, add the next 3 together. That gives you a number typically between 3 and 18. Well, it should be between 3 and 18 because you're only using 3 dice. Do that 6 times. You have 6 scores. Plug them into your abilities. And then you get modifiers, 12 and 13's plus 1, 14, 15 plus 2, 16, 17 plus 3, 18, 19 plus 4, and 20 is plus 5. And it's those pluses really that you then use to go in and figure like the plus to strength for attacks with swords, the plus to dex goes in for your armor class, also plays into your initiative. You can also use it for like shooting a bow. Plus to Constitution can give you more hit points. Pluses to Intelligence. You used to be able to speak more languages. I don't think that's the case anymore. But anyway, these are all things that help you out in the long run, and they play into some other things. So while the actual number itself, the 3 to 18, is not as big a deal, it's the modifier that you get off of it that is. All right, so we talked about experience points a lot. Experience points really are how you gain levels, and levels mean you get to do more cool stuff. You get more hit points, you get more benefits from your class, you cast more spells, all kinds of great things. And so in order to gain levels, you need experience. And experience points are, well, I mean, the easiest way to put it is each kind of monster that you can fight has a certain experience point value to it. And by the way, for those that are a little more on the pacifist side, no, you don't have to kill them to get the experience. The idea behind experience points is resolving the situation can give you experience. So if you can talk your way out of it, you can get experience. As a matter of fact, I have played games with people in the past who have actually would actually give more experience points than really what it was worth if you could find a way to get through this encounter without killing anybody and without having to run away. So if you could come up with a great non-violent solution, they would actually reward you with more experience. So experience points, and then they add up, and X number of experience points gets you, to the next level, and so on and so forth. Hit points. That's a simple one. Hit points, that's your life. That's your life value. The amount of health that you have, basically. And when it is gone, you're dead, basically. There's not really. There's a few other options that can keep you from dying, but yeah, when you run out of those, you are in a bad way quickly. And it is determined by your class, and then the level of your class, and as I mentioned, your Constitution modifier. I keep saying class. What the heck is a class? Well, in Dungeons and Dragons, a class would be like, what is it that you do? Oh, you're a fighter. Oh, you're a cleric, so you're kind of a holy spell person. You're a paladin. You're a holy warrior. You're a rogue. Yes, that's right. You run around and pick locks and steal things. You're a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. Yes. There are more classes than that, but that kind of gives you the basic idea. And race, don't think like we do in society, Caucasian, African American, Latinx. No. We're talking human, elf, dwarf, half-orc, dragonborn, gnome. The list is very, very long and getting longer by the day because it seems like almost every supplement that comes out has a new race in it. Sometimes it has new classes. And each race has its own advantages. Humans can do things dwarves can't do. But dwarves can do things that humans can't do. And elves can do things that the other two can't do. So on and so forth. By the way, while I'm thinking about this, if you're interested in just kind of seeing what I'm talking about, but you don't really feel like shelling out, the whole price for a full set of D&D rules, when Wizards of the Coast, when 5th edition was being released, they put out what's called a basic rules set. And it is actually available for free from their website. So if you go to you can go to D&D Beyond, dndbeyond.com. That's dndbeyond.com. You can get the free basic rules there. You can also just put 5th edition D&D basic rules into your Google search bar. And it gives you an idea. You can kind of look through and see some of these things that I'm talking about. just kind of get an idea. And if you're thinking maybe I might want to play, but again, I don't want to shell out all that money for all those books, that's another way to do it. One other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about when we're talking about terminology and all of that. Oh, initiative. Sorry, before I get to that last part, I said initiative. Initiative has to do with, it's another one of those things in combat. When you're going to do a combat, your dungeon master will have you roll for initiative. Your initiative is the spot in the order that you get to do something. Everybody acts at a specific point. So you roll your d20, you add your initiative modifier. Initiative modifier is a combination of factors. Your dexterity modifier plays into that. So roll your d20, add your dexterity modifier. That's going to tell you, okay, boom, initiative. This is where I'm at. Now, there's other things that you can do that will help with that. I'm not going to get into it. So let's say, DM calls for initiative. I've got a +3 for my initiative, and I roll a 1. I'm going to go fourth. I am probably going last in a given round, but that's okay. It gives me an opportunity to see what else everybody else is doing before I get a chance to act. And actually, I keep talking about rounds. So a round is everybody that is involved in something taking an action, whether it's all, here, rather than throw this out, let me just do it this way. Let's say there are 5 people in the group, and there are 4 monsters that you're fighting. So that's 9 people. 1 round, all 9 will take their actions. Now, a round used to be 6 seconds, but I mean, time in reality doesn't really matter because, I've played games where in real time it's taken us 25 minutes to get through a round. But a round is the amount of time it takes for everybody to make their actions in initiative order. That's the easy way to put it. I'm sure somebody's going to listen to this and be like, no, Wayne, the technical way to do it is great. Call me on it. I'll fall on my sword for that later. One other thing that I did want to mention, because I said something about skills. So skills are things that you can do in the game that just kind of give you a little something extra. Things like athletics and acrobatics. For those who are like wizards, arcana, because arcana is the study of magic, religion, study of religions, a bunch of different skills. And your proficiencies in those, again, allow you to do things that other people can't do and give you opportunity to do some cool stuff. So, yeah. The idea here is not to teach you how to create a D&D character, and I know some of these I could have done better, and I'm sure my buddy Jim's he's going to probably call me when this is over, and he's just like, dude, you pooched this one, you pooched that one, you could have done this one better. I'm really just trying to give, for those who don't know the terms, I'm trying to give you a kind of a primer, I guess, for, okay, this is what I mean when I talk about it. And then, like I said, obviously, here in a couple of weeks, when we get into a non-D&D game, I'm going to change it all on you. But sometimes just to understand the lingo is a good starting point. And that, at the end of the day, is what I was shooting for. So, I could do terms and terminology all day long. I'm not going to do that. I got us a few terms to get us started. We're going to be in with commercial, a little under half hour. That's really what I was shooting for a bonus episode. So, yeah. I think we're going to go on ahead and just pull the train to a stop for today's bonus episode. I am already hard at work on doing the research into TSR, which is going to be this Friday's regularly scheduled episode, and that will drop right around 11 a.m. Central Time. I haven't decided what we're going to do the following week yet because we'll deal with that when we get there. Yeah. So, again, as always, we do have a Facebook page. If you want to come by and you want to see what we're doing, you want to say, hey, you want to be part of the family that we're creating here. It's Roleplaying History on Facebook. You can, I said, leave comments, ask questions. If you've got direct questions, you don't want to put them out in the public forum like that, drop me an email, roleplayinghistorypodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Again, questions, concerns. Maybe you got ideas for future episodes. Maybe you work for a gaming company and you want to give me a job. Hint, hint, hint. I'm kidding. Not really. Anyway, that's all the business. Thanks for the bonus episode. I'm willing to do more bonus episodes, but I think what I'm going to start doing maybe is tying those into listenership numbers. I'm gonna think about that, talk to some folks, and maybe we'll get around to it. But that's it for this one. This Friday, 11 a.m. Central Time, we will do a nice deep dive into the history of TSR. So until next time, I'm Wayne Davis, and you're role-playing history.